This is Greg Pruitt, formerly of the Cleveland Browns, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook. The Sports Fix at AOL.com, and let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
Welcome into the Sports Fix. There we go. Some days I have so many tabs open in front of the master control board that it takes me a minute to find the microphone and click it on. But we're running, off and running, rocking and rolling, baby, on a, wow, I don't know what the adjective is you use on the absolute coldest day in the history of your city, because that's where we're at here in Cleveland. Negative 17 it reached, which became the all-time coldest temperature on this day in Cleveland history. 1899 was the previous low on this day. It was minus 16 degrees. It reached minus 17 degrees here this morning. But we're going to warm it up, baby. We've got a lot of good things coming. Matter of fact, you're going to notice a little different flow to the show today. We're not even going to get to the break before somebody joins us. Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, is going to join us just about 6 minutes from now, something like that. Jump in here on the conversation, talking some Tribe, spring training, who knows, some Cavaliers. Cavs, by the way, stand put yesterday at the trade deadline. We'll get into that here. A lot of teams making some moves. We'll talk about that here. Jonathan Knight's going to join us. We'll talk all about the spectrum of Cleveland sports. And my man JK has got today's question number 4 in the second annual Tribe Trivia Challenge, brought to you by the Sports Fix and our friends over at the Morning Wood. Remember, 10 questions, 10 days. The winner, the one who gets the most right questions, wins a 1972 Gaylord Perry Cleveland Indians jersey coming your way. I cannot wait to present it to the winner. Yesterday, Mike Brandenberry came up with just the bomb diggity of a question, man. I'm just going to tell you that now, and you guys had some difficulty with that one. The ace, Bruce Wood, the trivia master, the guy who gets these things before the question comes out of people's mouths half the time, struggled with yesterday's question. I mean, my hat is literally tipped to Mike Brandenberry right now. Yesterday's question. I'm going to repeat it here in a little. Matter of fact, I'm going to say it. I'll do it again. I'm going to see if Jonathan Knight knows, even though I'm going to tell him not to say it on the air. See if he knows perhaps who that is as well. But Mike Brandenberry, awesome. Dan Wismar's question on Wednesday. Jonathan Knight has got today's question, and I'll tell you what, I don't even know today's question. I'm going to find out when you guys find out, just about 5 or 10 minutes from now, from Jonathan Knight. So we'll get into all of that here. And I'll tell you what, something special today as well. We've had guests move around and change and cancellations due to weather. So we're going to keep those good vibes, those Tribe vibes moving. After Jonathan Knight joins us, I'm going to hit you with Tom Hamilton, the voice of the Cleveland Indians. Joined us here recently on the Sports Fix. We'll talk to Hammy about all the things that have to do with the history of the Cleveland Indians, specifically 1995 and the present and the bridge between them, baby. Glory days in Tribe Town. Terry Pluto, Tom Hamilton, wrote a great book about that. Tom Hamilton has been your voice of the Indians for several decades now. We'll talk about this year's Tribe as spring training's begun and more. Tom Hamilton, Jonathan Knight, get you set for the weekend. We got the Cavaliers getting back at it with the Wiz and the Knicks and all of that. Let's do what we do. Monsters, Make-A-Wish night, Vikings. Sports Fix Friday edition off and running. Welcome in, you guys, for the first time, or maybe you're here each and every day across the Sports Fix radio network. I am your host, the Big Daddy on the microphone, J-Rocc. Jerry Myers here every day, live, noon Eastern time. Pretty much without fail. Yeah, we're here. Your clock hits noon. Here we go. Whether you're listening live on TuneIn, TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker and Mixlr and their respective digital and mobile applications, perhaps you enjoy the show every day right on our home base, thesportsfix.net. One-stop shop for everything you need right there. Welcome in all of you also who don't listen live but listen on digital delay around the world 24/7 in time zones and countries everywhere. Thousands of you guys that enjoy the show on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, CarPlay, all of the different places that you podcast, feed, download, subscribe. There's way too numerous sites to mention them all, but no matter where you get your fix, thank you guys so much, because I say it all the time. I mean, everybody says it, but I don't think everybody means it. Without you, there is nothing happening here. You guys make this thing happen, and you make it happen by being the voice, the heart, the soul, the spirit of the Sports Fix on the phones, on the social media. When the phones are open, I'll let you in. If not, you don't have to wait. You can leave your take 24/7, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Can't get through? Facebook and Twitter's what you do. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Email us, thesportsfix@AOL.com. I gotta tell you, a little extra pep in my step today. Not only because you gotta push a little harder to get through a frigid day like this. I'm feeling good. Last night, got a chance to catch up with my man Ray Rowe, a professional wrestler. You guys, wrestling fans out there, know who Ray Rowe is. Ring of Honor superstar, the baddest man on the planet, my boy. Haven't seen him in a minute. Haven't seen him since I'm telling you, he's lucky to be here. Terrible motorcycle accidents months back. A normal person would have been out on the shelf for a year. My man was not only back, but back quick. Less than 6 months. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A handful of months. Not only is he back, but my man looks like Superman. I'm just going to tell you that right now. The Incredible Hulk was standing in my face yesterday. It's just proof that the human spirit can overcome anything, man, because that man's lucky to be walking, let alone walking around looking like the Incredible Hulk. So I'm feeling good today. Hopefully you guys are feeling good. Cavaliers feeling good as they get ready to start the second half. Well, I always joke they call it the second half. It's only 26 games here left to go. 27? Yeah, because they're at 33 and 22, so they played 55. So, yeah, you've got 27 there left to go. It starts with the Wiz, Washington tonight, and these two teams right there jockeying for position. They're right there in the same place, just a hair behind the Cavaliers there. So, big game here to start it. You'll have the Knicks, who are in all kinds of trouble here. That'll be a good one for the Cavaliers on Sunday to hopefully grab that one. But you can't look ahead. You've got Washington. Both of these teams looking to start their second half with some stuff going for them, and this is a great way for each team to do it. Cavs, as I mentioned, stood pat at the trade deadline, as many people thought they did. Cavs made their moves previously. The only thing I wasn't sure was if there was going to be anything involving Brendan Haywood because of that expiring contract and the fact that it was seen in many circles as more valuable technically before the trade deadline than if you waited until later to try to use that as a chip in a trade. Either way, Cavaliers. And you know what? Mike Brandenberry and I, we were bouncing it around yesterday. I'm really cool with the Cavs standing put because I think, you know what? A lot of teams, and there was a flurry of trades. I mean, just a flurry of trades yesterday. So the way I see it, and tell me if you are with me, but the way I see it is the Cavs made their moves a month ago, and they've had an extra month to gel those pieces together. A lot of these teams are playing catch-up because they made their moves here, but these pieces now have to gel for those guys. One of the bigger ones, Goran Dragic, goes to Miami there. Big trade there and a whole package of players. That's going to be interesting to see how he teams up with Dwayne Wade there and what they do as they put speaking of the Heat, by the way, Chris Bosh, man, off of the trade thing, man, scary news coming out of there. Chris Bosh may have some serious health issues perhaps blood clots in his lungs. If that's the case, he's out the rest of the season. And I don't care if you like Miami or not. None of us do, but that has nothing to do with that, man. As a human being, definitely thoughts and prayers for Chris Bosh, and you hope that it's not. I mean, that's serious stuff. Remember, Pinky, Jason Pinkston for the Browns. That stuff that's life-threatening stuff right there, man. Glad that they can catch that. That's where you're glad that they have all the ability to do all the testing and stuff like that. So best of luck to him there. But big package deal there. Not only that, Miami shipped out some stuff, and I'll tell you though. So I think Miami made a good trade. Morris Cole ended up being a part of that package from the Vikings, Cleveland State. A lot of people held out hope that maybe he may find his way back to Cleveland at some point. It won't be here, as he's going to the land of the sun there, heading out to Phoenix. Who else ended up in that? Danny Granger went out in that trade. A couple of first-round picks. 2 different first-round picks were sent out there, and a few other parts and pieces as well were part of that trade. And New Orleans ended up being a piece of that to help make all the salaries and stuff balance out. Reggie Jackson ended up being dealt from Oklahoma City. He headed to the Detroit Pistons. A lot of deals went down yesterday. Kendrick Perkins ended up being part of the deal to Utah to get Cantner from the Jazz over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They sent a protected first-round pick. I don't know for sure if that's part of the deal with the Cavaliers there, the one that they got, but I mean, moves everywhere. And Perkins is not going to play with the Jazz, which is where the Cavs now come back into question. There, you guys in the chat room are right on that, as that's what a lot of the buzz is around there, is that perhaps with a buyout here, and that's what comes after the trade deadline is buyout. As a matter of fact, I've got it on my little notes here. Trade deadline equals buyout season, because once all those moves happen, then guys start boom, 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 dropping this contract, dropping that guy. Then guys have time to go before the deadline to get on rosters and time to be part of the playoff teams. And Cavs, Bulls, Clippers, got to be a couple of the teams, although I'm hearing not so much with the Clippers now. But Kendrick Perkins is going to be a valuable piece for these teams looking for another big man coming down. And that's when, I'll tell you, some Cavs fans don't like him. I like Kendrick Perkins. If Kendrick Perkins ends up being available, matter of fact, when we did the deal with Dion, that was one of the pieces that I heard initially was discussed in different permutations with the Cavs was Kendrick Perkins. And I'm with it. He's a nasty big man. I like Kendrick Perkins, and I think that could be, especially if he's willing to come in, the price is right, he gets bought out by the Jazz, that could be an interesting piece. But if they don't do anything, I'm okay with letting it gel together too. Like I said, I kind of feel like the Cavs have a bit of a head start, maybe about 30 days on all these teams that made trades yesterday, because while they begin the process now of getting everybody melded together for the playoffs, Cavs have kind of already been working that way for about a month now. So they've got a bit of a head start, although I've got no problem adding a Kendrick Perkins to the team. I'm much more about that. By the way, I knew when I talked about that yesterday, I said, yeah, we've been hearing this forever. All these stories, well, Ray Allen's here for sure. Well, anyways, we'll see what happens with that. But I would be all about Kendrick Perkins. Kevin Garnett not only ends up going back to Minnesota, but as soon as he gets traded, word comes out that they're talking about perhaps contract there and, hey, going home. It worked for LeBron, and Kevin Garnett said, hey, what the heck, I'm going to head back home too. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, joining us here on The Conversation. Let's just jump right into it. JK, how you doing, my man?
I'm cold, Jerry. How are you?
We're all cold, my
friend. I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone.
Oh, I'll tell you, man. Coldest day. I was saying here, I don't know where you are, but coldest on this day. Record low for today. We hit minus 17 here in Cleveland. I don't know about you. Close.
It's not quite that bad down here, but bad. You know, and we're a little softer down here in the tropical climes of central Ohio. But yeah, I'm basically setting random things on fire to stay warm at this point.
At least it's, hey, you know what? If you were closer to Berea, the traditional dumpster fires would help you out a little bit there.
But, one over there, do they?
You know,
constant dumpster fire.
But right there, I was just talking. But did you hear maybe the last little bit I said? I look at it. I was not jumping up and down for the Cavs. I thought they made their moves already. Although, if Kendrick Perkins gets bought out, I'm all about the Cavs taking a run. He is a nasty big man with the right big man on this team. Other than that, though, together for and so, you know, I'm not jumping up and down for Ray Allen either.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I don't know that minds about it. I think that they went back to school shopping in a way and got everything they needed, and it seems to be working, and they do have that kind of head start, and they've started to mesh, and if you throw one more piece in there, then not that it would fall apart, but that's one more to account for and adjust for and all of that. And so I'm hesitant and don't know a good move. But on the other hand, everything that they've done here in the last 2 months has worked like a charm. They just are really on a roll. So I at the same time, I'd be interested to see what they could do. So I don't know. I mean, I guess just wait and see. I'm two minds about it. I don't really have a strong. I guess it's just we just wait and see and trust that, you know what, you're hot, and whatever they do, they've got a pretty good track.
Perkins, by the way, attitude, his disposition. I know some Cavs fans don't, but I think he would be a nice piece because he got traded, and it appears he's going to be bought out, and he's going to. Chicago's another team that's going to look to grab him, and the last thing you need is for Chicago to get strengthened with big men.
Yeah, maybe that's the real advantage is you go get him or someone else just to prevent somebody else from getting him.
I mean,
because that's about you using them, but just making sure that someone else can. So yeah, that's another.
I already worry about the big men over there at Chicago to begin with. Let them add Perkins to that, and that would definitely be an advantage swinger. You know what? To me, a trade that nobody really made a big deal about. I like Ramon Sessions going to the Wizards, who we're going to see the Wizards tonight with the Cavs, but Ramon Sessions can play some ball. If you guys remember when he played here, man, I thought that he kind of got the shaft from some fans that didn't necessarily recognize that Ramon Sessions is a good point guard. That's going to be a good backup guard there for John Wall. That could be a good piece for the Wizards, and that's a team that the Cavs are going to be fighting with here for playoff position.
Yeah, and tonight, again, I feel like every time we have this conversation, we're talking about, tonight's a big game for the Cavs, and you say that, it gets a little more trite as an 82-game season goes on, but it really kind of is. First game back out of the break, facing Washington, this team that you really are, at least at this point, in sort of a dogfight for 3, 4, 5 spots in the East, and I know Chicago's in there as well, and Toronto's right there as well, so there's sort of a logjam. But this really, not only is it interesting because it's two teams that are vying for the same spot, but this really does the most challenging and probably most indicative stretch of the Cavs season. I think over these next 3 weeks, they're going to play a lot of playoff teams, a lot of not just playoff teams, but title contender playoff teams, and we're going to learn a lot. And of their next 14 games, 11 of them are on the road. So that's something else that it's going to be a test. We'll see, are these Cavs really for real, or are they really as good as they looked there in late January when they ripped off 12 in a row, playing great teams. So this is their chance to sort of rebut that and start the second half. And it starts tonight. I think that if you're going to put together a good string here in this stretch, you need to start out with a victory tonight, because I think this really sets the tone. It's not necessarily a game the Cavs should win. Washington's a good team and this is on the road, but if they truly believe that they have made that leap and are now in that elite category in the NBA, this is a game that they need to win and start this off right and start this stretch off right. If you lose it, it's certainly not the end of the world, but I think it sort of gets you off on the wrong foot and sets a bad tone for the next 13 or 14 games, and now you're looking not so much at making a statement and sweeping through these games as much as trying to survive. So this is a key game tonight. I think we're going to learn a lot about the Cavs over the next couple of weeks, and it starts tonight.
Absolutely. I mean, just even the next 3 weeks of games, as you said, starting with Washington. A couple days from now, you've got Golden State back at the Q, Houston, Toronto,
right.
Atlanta, Dallas, San Antonio. I mean, it just keeps, just the next 3 weeks alone, you've got all the top Western Conference teams and the best teams over in the East as well, too. So it'll be good. And I love that, man, because now's the time you want to see that. You didn't necessarily want to see it earlier when you were still putting the pieces together, but now's where you want to start testing it in the fire. And it all starts back tonight. It'll be a good one. Sunday, you've got the Knicks. I said, hey, man, those are the ones at this point of the season that you just go gobble those teams up. I mean, we shouldn't even be having discussions like we did earlier in the season. You're getting ready for the playoffs. Right. They're putting their superstar on the bench, which, by the way, I just got to ask you, I've been tripping all week about about the fact that Carmelo Anthony can go out there and play like he did in the All-Star game, how do you stand in front of your fans and then go, yeah, but I can't play the rest of the season because my knee's too sore, man, so I'm gonna sit it out. We're gonna shut it down for the season. And then you look at the fans and go, we're not tanking games. Then how in the world did you put that guy out there for the All-Star game? Come on, man. You can't sell that when you decided to let him what did he play, 30 minutes, jacked up 300 three-pointers in that game, but he can't play any more games for the Knicks.
Yeah, that feels very NBA, doesn't it? I don't know. Yeah, I know there are flakes in all sports, of course, but it just has that NBA flavor to it. That it's a big spotlight type of thing. Okay, I'll go out there and put on a show and make myself look good, but then no, I don't want to play for a crummy team the rest of the year. I don't know. It just has that spotlight on me type of flavor to it. Yeah.
I said, well, I saw it coming before this one out, man, because that's going to look really bad next week when they say, well, he can't play, and the best part is, what's wrong with him? Well, it's an undetermined thing. It's more like just a general soreness, like, okay, then, general man.
I have general soreness. I'm sick of winter, man.
I saw a report that said, from a doctor that said it was the type of thing that if you took any NBA player who'd played for any number of years and MRI'd their knee, that's what it would look like. So that's where you're at. It's we need to lose some games, and it helps us if you don't play to perhaps lose a few more of those.
Yeah, that's another good angle to it. That it actually behooves them to lose some of these games, and that's the quickest way to do that, as you just mentioned, for an undisclosed injury.
Hey,
so going back to what you said before, a great point though too, that not only do the Cavs need to put up a good show and stand up to some of these stronger teams they're going to play, but they need to win these easy ones. They need to, and we saw a little bit of that even with, especially toward the end, that they were struggling a little bit against teams that were blowing out, or they'd get a big lead and blow the lead, whatever. They need to, whether it's Sunday against the Knicks and then Detroit right after that. So they need to go out in these games that, especially these ones in this stretch where you've got tough games around with these easy ones. You need to just come in and take care of business. That game needs to be over by halftime. Take control, show your muscle, and Kyrie and Kevin Love 40 minutes a game against a team that you should win, you should beat by 20 points. So it's just as telling, some of these easier games in this stretch, that they do actually become easy games and not difficult ones.
Absolutely, man. We get to talk basketball. We don't talk a lot of basketball, you and I, man.
And they're really, because I feel like in my history on the show, because I didn't come on until post the decision, and there really wasn't much basketball to talk about. I think we talked more about Cleveland State than we talked about the Cavs since 2001. So this is refreshing, yeah. Usually this time of year, all we do is, it's 38 days till opening day. We just sit there and do that. And that's fun for a while, but, you can only do that so many times.
It's 314 days till the next opening day, whatever. But you're right, man. Speaking of, though, we are there too, by the way. Baseball, it's for real. No more goofing around. They're out there. They're doing their thing. We're warming up. Matter of fact, after you and I get done, I'm going back and talked to Tom Hamilton a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to replay that now just to keep warming things up, man, and then keep that Indian fever, a little hammy. But Tribe's starting to report, man. How are you feeling? Seriously, just take your temperature on the Indians heading into spring training here.
I felt a lot better. I mean, I feel good overall, but I felt a lot better before the Indians started showing up on people's radars, because I always get a bad feeling when that starts to happen. We saw, I think in the last week, somebody for Sports Illustrated had them ranked 4th in their power rankings, and they were the top team in the American League, and we're going to start to see more of that, primarily based on Kluber and the pitching staff and all of this, and I just get really nervous when I see that. And I think it's not and hard to do it. I think in the last, it's been a team to have at last. Everyone's buried by the have the next year, and so to fall in, we've seen it already when it's just where he left off, and Brantley will absolutely take Cleveland drop-offs here. I think Kluber and Brantley, you cannot last year, and maybe over next year. They're going to draw a lot of last year. You look at Santana. Therein lies the balance of how this thing is going to turn out. They're going to team that we're going to have guys that they're going to bounce back, and so I'm excited to see what everything's going to. I think it's expectations, and that people are expecting them to be a playoff type of team, and there's going to be that expectation there. that's when you really start to skate on thin ice, and you have to be careful, not just as a team, but as fans. There's not going to be there's still issues that need to be tackled. But yeah, overall, though, I am excited. I think that this is going to be fun. And with the Central Division being as wide, Detroit's window, I think, is closed. I think they're still a playoff team, but this is going to be the weakest Tigers team we've seen in at least, I'd say, 3 years. And Kansas City, I think, is in the exact same position as the Indians. They're going to be some out, and they match that. They are under even more pressure than the Indians. They really caught lightning in a bottle, and I find it difficult to think that they're going to mirror that, at least what they did in September and October.
A lot of time. We can get more into it next week. Couple of things. Baseball announced they're teasing with the pitch clocks here in the minor league. Couple of things they announced this morning. Batters now have to they're going to clock the stall between, and managers cannot leave the dugout at all during replay challenge added to try to cut the pace of the game up a little bit here. Even realized that it crept back over 3 hours last. That's a hefty chunk of time. We talk about things better than putting a pitch clock on and telling a guy you got 10 seconds to make your game. This stuff here, it's just, hey, a little bit.
Yeah, you're sort of messing with, not that we're between 20 seconds between pitches, but that's one of the things that can be measured. It just seems odd that we all know that the reason we need more time for self is, I don't argue than it was 30 or 40 years ago. It's that we need more commercial breaks. We need longer 30-second intervals between innings and pitching changes and all of this to cram in more commercials and for the television broadcast. So, I mean, we're ignoring the reason why games are longer and trying to nip and tuck in other ways that were never a problem in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan Knight, sports writer extraordinaire, joining us. Hey, look, I know we're tight on time here. You are my man today, which, by the way, I told people I would repeat the question from yesterday. Tribe Trivia Challenge. This year's prize, we've got a 72 Gaylord Perry jersey, Cooperstown collectible, and really cool stuff. And the first few questions have been, if you know the answers, I'm going to tell you to text me, JK, because I'm curious if you know the answers. But on Wednesday, Dan Wismar dropped a good one. Who was the first cover of Sports Illustrated? Second player also featured. It was a pretty good one. But yesterday's takes the cake. Last year and this year's contest, yesterday's question had more wrong answers and more difficulty. Even Bruce, who is a trivia guru, got it wrong 800 times before he figured it out. Who was the last Cleveland Indians player to make his major league debut, his absolute major league debut, and of course meaning as a starter, not just being on the roster, on opening day? Who was the last Indians player to make his major league debut on opening day? It's so much harder than you think, because I didn't know the answer either, and I had to go try to dig this thing up. And even when Mike Brandenberry came up, his whole crew over at didthetribewinlastnight.com, the answer that they had turned out to be wrong, because in the process of researching it, Bruce, this hours of researching it, we found out that they actually had the wrong answer too. We found out who it was, but it was hard work to research that one. Have fun with that,
I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
It's tough.
It's something you don't think about. You don't think of that, especially with the India. And it, in a way, you probably should, because they've had so many rebuilding seasons in recent years that you would think, well, sure, somebody had to just get thrown out there as a rookie in order to be making your maybe not in August or September as you limp toward the finish line. I mean, you got to be something of a prospect to kind of just that's a fantastic one. I can't wait to hear what the answer is, because I have no idea.
I was going to say, wait till you hear who it is. You're going to go, get out of here, that guy. And really, it's amazing, because so many guys, you go look them up, and they were a September call up for a game or something like that, or like there were a couple that started the home opener but didn't start the opener a few days earlier. So it was an interesting question for sure. And so you are the gatekeeper today, man. I thought, last year we came up with all the questions, and Bruce and I were talking as we put this year's together, and it was like, man, I want to get other people just come up with different questions. As you hear, we've had some good ones. So you get to do it today, and you said you've got one, and I don't even know what it is. I have no clue what you're coming with today, but I said, hey, if you want to make it Major League themed, because I know you're working on the Major League book, which, by the way, how's that coming?
It's coming. We're still looking at a spring release. Don't have a release date yet. We've hit some delays with Hollywood, as you're wont to do in this business, of course, and as I do, every week I run into Hollywood delays. That's what life is. But yes, we're gradually crawling toward the finish line. We will get there eventually. We're looking at sometime this spring. So it's going. It's not always going as quickly as I'd like, but it is going. So it will be reality before too long.
I can't just wait to talk to you about it. I want to get this thing in my hands. Like, I just want to see this thing. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, I'm dying to see the work you put together because I know it's great, man. I know it is, and I'm not just saying that. So what do you got, man? I mean, have you dug in the Major League record books here? Are we going Indians? What do you got for us today? Question number 4 in the Tribe Trivia Challenge.
Well, it is actually, it's tied in with Major League, and it is something that is actually going to be mentioned in the book. So the book is not out yet, but it will eventually, whenever it is, this little tidbit will be in there.
Difficulty level. How hard is this going to be?
And you certainly don't need to have the book to get the answer. Most people, considering how much we love it, and you may know this one too, you may just know this off the top of your head. But the question is, and there's a question and then sort of a hint after that. But the question is, in the movie, in Major League, the movie, who is the Indians? What is the name of the Indians' starting pitcher on opening day? The first regular in the movie. The starting pitcher. His name is in there, and it's part of the movie, and it's you'll be able to tell. It's called out. But the reason why it's particularly significant, something of an homage to an actual Indians player from yesteryear. So the answer is sort of, I don't know that helps give you the answer or find out the answer, but it's sort of an interesting story behind it that we're able to tell at some point. So the question is, who is in the movie Major League? Who is the Indians' opening day starting pitcher?
I love it. Jonathan Knight coming out of the box. All right, guys. Question number 4. And remember, all you have to do is email thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's it. Thesportsfix@AOL.com. Question number 4. Give me the answer. Whoever answers the most of the 10 correctly is going to win this thing. In the movie Major League, the original, number 1, the real Major League movie, who was the Indians pitcher on opening day, the starting pitcher on opening day in Major League, the movie? Jonathan Knight, good one there. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know off the top of my head. I got the DVD like 2 feet away from me, so I'll figure it out here. But
it would be easy if you really wanted to know. You could find out, but it's not Charlie Sheen. It is not Wild Thing. It is not. It's not a cast member. It is not a character that you know from the movie. So
there we go.
Basically, the only time that this person is a part of this movie is for this one scene.
All right, there we go. I'm going to figure that one out. You let me know. Text me and let me know if you can figure out the other one from yesterday. I'm curious to see.
I will. I want to. This is a fun little exercise. I'm curious now because that's a fantastic question. I cannot wait to find out the answer.
I called Mike last night and said, Mike, you were wrong. You're not going to believe this. I said, you know how crazy Bruce is. He traced this thing down, man, and everybody was wrong. It was unreal. He goes, son of a gun. I missed that. You're right, man. And so he's actually going to do an article next week, and he had that referenced in it. He goes, hey, now I get to go change it. I don't look bad because I actually had that referenced in the article. So, boom. All right, JK, excellent. One more time. In the movie Major League, who is the name of the Indians' starting pitcher for their opening day game? Email the answer, question 4, to thesportsfix@AOL.com. JK, thank you so much for being with us again, my man. And next week we'll have some spring training stuff to talk about. We'll be right on the cusp, just a couple of days away from the first spring training game. We'll see how the Cavaliers have done in their re-jump here in the second half of the season. And if we're lucky, we won't have anything bad to talk about with the Browns, and maybe even something good. Who knows?
Maybe. At least maybe. Hopefully, it will be warmer. Let's focus on the basics for now. It will not be 17 below next Friday. We may have 3-4 feet of snow, but let's enough with this polar vortex stuff.
Yeah, this is ridiculous here. I usually laugh about putting names on it. You can put a name on it when it's 17 below zero, man. That's no joke. Last night I went to dinner with a buddy, and we both have mustaches and beards, and just every breath, the mustache freezes, the nose hairs freeze, everything freezes, and then it melts on the exhale, and then it freezes on the inhale. Gotta love it, man. We're Vikings, man. Come on, we're tough guys. Jonathan Knight, Sports writer extraordinaire, thank you so much once again for joining us. Great trivia question, great conversation. Can't wait to do it again next week, man.
You bet. Looking forward to it.
You know what? We'll only be. That's right. You got to come up with one more trivia question next week. We're still gonna be rolling.
Oh, we can do one more. I mean, loaded with nothing but useless information.
All right, then question number 9 is also going to come from Jonathan Knight then. All right, then. I look forward to it, man. I'll catch up with you next week.
That'll be great, buddy.
You got it. The sports writer extraordinaire, Jonathan Knight, my man, thank you very much. One more time, his question, from the movie Major League, name the Indians' starting pitcher on opening day in the Major League movie. And as a hint, it's not a cast member, so you'll actually have to go research it. Email thesportsfix@AOL.com. Thesportsfix@AOL.com. Send us the answer to question number 4, and you're in. It's that simple. Somebody's going to win the jersey right off of Gaylord Perry's back, baby. Could it be you? Email your answer. We'll find out. Let's take a break. First break of the show. Great first segment. When we come back, Tom Hamilton, voice of the Indians, warming you up even more on this cold, cold day. We'll heat it up, talking some baseball with the voice of the Indians, Tom Hamilton, coming up next here on The Fix.
Get your fix.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you...
Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, before we go to friends at Harry Buffy, some of the Northeast are two environments. They've got great deal day of the week, a fantastic buy. Looking for whatever day of the week. Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buff side.
Is on iHeart app today. Subscribe to the show and get your fix. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs. There's literally only one place to go. FantasyJocks.com.
Here we go, bring it on in. It's time now. It's all city. We got to do it for them, dog. We got to do it for Cleveland. They're waiting on us. We're fine what we're about. Let's get it going.
Every single night, every single practice, every single game, we got to give it all we got because they're going to ride with us. Everything that we do on this floor was because of this city. We owe them. We're going to grind for this city. They're going to support us, man, but we got to give it all back to them. We get it done. The toughness that we have on the court is going to come from this city. Everybody, the whole city of Cleveland. That's what it's all about. It's time to bring them something special. Let's go. Bring it on in, everybody. Let's go. Hard work on 3. Together on 6. 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 5, 6. It's all us. Cleveland on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to The Sports Fix.
Indian fever is catching fire with everyone.
Welcome back into the Sports Fix Live across the Sports Fix Radio Network. J-Rocc back with you guys here. Sports writer extraordinaire Jonathan Knight joined us last segment. Always a great time when JK's here. And how about that trivia question as well? We're going to bring it to you one more time at the end of the show before we're done here. But Tribe Trivia rolling. Do it on Monday. Dan Wismar. Cannot wait for that to see what he's got, of course. I don't think anybody can beat Mike Brandenburg's question. On Tribe Trivia, 10 questions. Win that Gaylord Perry jersey when we wrap this thing up at the first spring training game, March 3rd. You guys keep your answers coming in. Email them to thesportsfix@AOL.com. Keep your conversation coming in throughout the show. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixCLE. Email us thesportsfix@AOL.com. It is a record cold, frigid day outside today. A record all time for the city of Cleveland. 17 degrees below zero. It has been Well, it's never been this cold, but the previous high was set over 120 years ago. Frigid, but we're keeping it warm. Hopefully we're warming you up. Some baseball conversation tends to do that. How about we bring you a fantastic conversation that we were able to have a few weeks ago, bring it right back here. Many of you, this will be the first time you heard this. The legendary voice of the Cleveland Indians, Tom Hamilton, joined me here on the Sports Fix to talk about this upcoming Indian season, the 1995 Indians, glory days in Tri Town that he wrote with Terry Pluto and so much more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this one. I'm sitting here right here with you and enjoying it all along, and I'll be here with you along the way as we enjoy this conversation with the voice of the Cleveland Indians, Tom Hamilton, live right here on the Sports Fix. Tom, thank you so much for being with us today on the show.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jerry.
Oh, thank you very much for being here. Cleveland fans have been very fortunate over the years to have some great broadcasters helping bring the theater of the mind to them through the radio, and you are at the top of that list, and I'm very honored to have you here on the show.
Well, thank you. That's very kind, and I've been the lucky one to have a job like this, and secondly, to have a passionate fan base to broadcast. What any broadcaster wants. Happy or mad, that sure beats apathy, and this has always been a great fan base.
Absolutely, and you've gotten a chance 25 years deep now to see that fan base at the depths of the apathy, perfect word there, and at the absolute peak of the great times there. Talk to me a bit. I guess from the beginning, I got a kick talking about glory days in Tribe Town right from the beginning as you talk about your initial run there with Herb's score and some of those conversations, the road trips and all of that. Talk to me a bit, if you don't mind, about getting started with the Indians and the beginning of the journey you find yourself now on the other end of.
Well, for me, it was really no different than a player in that, you'd worked your way up the ladder, whether it was high school or then college and eventually minor league ball, starting in A ball. So it's very much like a player. When you get that call to the major leagues, you know how fortunate and blessed you are. And, it's kind of like winning the lottery. And I was lucky enough for that to happen starting with the 1990 season. And then to work with somebody like Herb. At the time, I had no idea how fortunate I was, but that really was a tipping point for me because Herb was such an iconic figure in this town, and yet he never acted like he was, and he was terrific to me, and the 8 years I had with him were ones that I'll always remember fondly. And he gave me some of the best advice I've ever had in this profession, and because Herb was so well thought of in this community and by Indians fans, it gave you, just by working with him. At the time, you don't realize how lucky you are, but I certainly do now.
Absolutely. And, Herb's score, of course, that era, you guys together still to this day, it always happens, I think, when an iconic broadcaster that's long time moves on, it's always tough. I always feel for the guys that have to, come afterwards and follow through. And sometimes, even today with Rosie, we've got listeners that still, I understand, but, things move forward. I think you guys, the combination that you have now is fantastic. But you talk about some of the beginning advice that you got right off the bat. I thought it was funny as you recollected the story of you and I believe it was the PR guy for the Indians at the time talking about the potential for a good season, and Herb listened for a few minutes and said, "What are you guys talking about? This team's gonna stink," and taught you right up the front to be very honest about the projections of a team, but then explained to you how you don't do that on the air. Every game is super important to the person that's listening.
Well, yeah, and how a ball club is performing from a record standpoint can't impact your broadcast. It can't impact the pregame work that you do or the amount of homework that you do. You approach every game like it's the biggest game ever, and if you have that approach, your work ethic will always be there. And nobody saw more bad baseball than Herb did for the majority of his 35 years as a broadcaster with the Indians, and yet that's why he was so highly regarded in this community, because Herb was the one constant through all of those years of change and disappointment and players and managers and owners coming and going. The one constant for Indians fans was Herb Score. And that was a great lesson to be taught.
Into that, it's of course full circle stories. What you just said about you, voice of the Indians. Many players switch jerseys, and I'm sure we'll mention that from time to time. As eras change and go away, that you have become that standard bearer, that one that they go, well, we've got Hammy, you know, and that's an incredible honor you've gotten there. But you know, looking back, I wanted to go back to when you started here. This is, by the way, excuse me if I'm a little ADD here, but this is one of those, I have 8 million questions, so you have to figure out what direction you want to go in this thing, you know, and which is a tribute to all the things you've done in your career. But when you started with the Indians, could the organization already feel the upward swing of things, or was it still in the dark period just before the dawn?
Oh, no, it was still very dark because, you know, the Jacobs brothers had, you know, bought that ball club in the late 80s and brought in Hank Peters, who, of course, in turn brought with him John Hart and Danny O'Dowd. But, you know, that was just the beginning. And you never know how it's going to turn out, because they knew the only way to build a club the proper way was through the farm system, and that takes time. That doesn't happen in 1 or 2 years. Really, the Indians back in the late 80s when Hank accepted the job as GM, it was really very comparable to an expansion team. The Farm League Ball Club wasn't very good. You had on the Major League Ball Club wanted out, and you were going to have to trade them. And that had happened many times in the past, and fans had grown very weary of that, and new plans and new rebuilding programs that somebody always can, John and Danny, and then later Mark Shapiro, you know, they stuck by that plan, and that was the key, not to waver and not to lose patience, but to be firm in your commitment. And, you know, those teams, you know, the 1991 season was the worst season still in Cleveland Indians history. So I don't think anybody in 1991 with a 106-loss season could envision that in 3 years everything would be different. But it certainly was different with the building of Jacobs Field, and then with that ball club and the plan realizing its potential. It's not very often that you can put something down on paper like the Indians did, have a plan, and really have everything come together at the exact time you envisioned it. But by golly, it did with the Indians, and that led to the glory days now that we look back at so fondly.
Yeah, and you know what you talked about, and I mentioned here about her being very honest and evaluating the teams behind the scenes and stuff. What was that moment driving around or in your personal conversations where you both looked at each other and said, hey, now, this is starting to turn the corner here. We're on the verge of something good here. Do you have a moment, or can you pinpoint a time where you guys got that feeling behind the scenes that this is it?
Well, you know, Jerry, I think we would have seen it in 1993, and that ball club was assembling in Winter Haven, and I'm sure fans may or may not remember, that was the first year that the Indians trained in Florida. You know, for years, the Indians' spring training had been in Tucson, and 1993 was the first spring training for the Indians in Florida. They were, if you remember, supposed to have a spring training facility in Homestead, which is south of Miami and north of the Keys. Hurricane that came through and literally wiped out Homestead, and so that was to move ours to the run to Ford mentioned enough training and great expectations. A lot of young talent had started to turn the corner. It was going to be the last year at Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and I think everybody thought when we got to spring training, you know, this is going to be the start of a special year, and I think Herb believed that as well. And then we had the incredible boating tragedy that took the lives of Steve Olin and Tim Cruz. And for all practical purposes, that season was over before it ever began. And logged for about half the year, rebounded in the second half of 93, played better that second half were coming and the opening of Jacobs Field. I think at that point, 93 became a lost season in my mind. But with the beginning of a new ballpark, that's when you really felt like, you know what, this club now is ready. Maybe the rest of baseball doesn't know it yet, and we'll see if this ball club is as good as we think it is. But I think those were the years where you really felt like it was turning, and even though we didn't get off to a great start in 94, eventually you could see that this was going to be a special time.
I'll tell you what, and you're listening to the Sports Fix, by the way. For those of you tuning in as we go through this interview, J-Rocc talking to Tom Hamilton, the voice of the Indians, and you dawn right into that 94 season. It's funny because, we all look at things through our own personal frame of reference, and at that time I was still, I'm trying to remember exactly how old I was, but I was in my teenage years, and I still wasn't, the savvy sports guy that we all turn into when we grow up, and we all know how to coach the teams and run the teams and all of that. And I remember being in the group of people that day to day was just waiting. I assumed that it would be short-term delay when they were dealing with the negotiations, and then of course the season gets canceled. But I was in that group of people just going, all right, let's start playing some baseball here, because the Indians, you could feel it. They were right there. They would have, I think, I don't know what you think, but I feel they would have definitely finished that run there in that 94 season. But the whole season was special from the very beginning, even though the end of it, you talked a bit about that, how when you look back at your memories, still, even that opening game, having a president there, I mean, those are things that, how often do those things happen here in Cleveland,
Well, exactly, and it had been a case where, for how many years did we have such a terrible ballpark to play in, and the ball club matched that park. And, there really wasn't anything we could do for it. And so, that was a time that was, I think still a lot of skepticism surrounded the ball club. And whether or not they'd be good enough. And I think the opening of that ballpark really changed people's minds on how baseball was going to be perceived in Cleveland. And I think it also brought you players you never could have gotten before at the old ballpark. And so that was really the beginning of a very special time.
Tom, when was the first time, I'm just curious, when was the first time you got to lay your eyes on the finished product that was Jacobs Field? How much before the season? And what were your thoughts then when you just looked around at this sparkling new facility?
I'm sorry, Jerry, you broke up there.
The first time, when was it? What was it, a few weeks before the season? When was the first time you
that I saw the ballpark?
Yeah, absolutely, the finished product.
I had seen it that winter, but it wasn't a finished product yet. And in fact, it really wasn't even a finished product when we played that first exhibition game at the ballpark. They were still trying to finish some of the things in the concourse, and the ballpark itself never did get completely done until later that 94 season. So because I was then in spring training, I never really saw the ballpark until we walked into it for that first exhibition game leading into the opener against the Seattle Mariners. And so for me, I had seen it a couple of different times, but it was never finished. And in all honesty, I never really wanted to see the ballpark until it was finished. And it was kind of like, you don't want to open up the Christmas present if you've only got half the gift. And you want to wait until Christmas and get all the gifts at one time. And so I think that first time that you walked into it for that exhibition game in 94, that's when you were, to me, I was flabbergasted, because I've said it many times in the past, the actual walking into that ballpark and seeing it was even greater than the anticipation. And that doesn't happen very often in life.
That's the next question. You answered it for me. I was going to say, a lot of times when something's built up, even in your own mind, and you're looking forward to it, how often does it live up to the hype or to the expectations? And I was going to ask you, but clearly it more than did. And I mean, we say this all the time on an aside, talking about that park. Yeah, they're doing the remodeling now, but that's a spruce up. To look at how it's still to this day. Can you believe it's that old? You're there every day. I mean, it has held up so well, and it is still such a great park.
Yeah, it really is. And that tells you that they got it right. And I think, too, the advantage that the Indians had was that it was really the second new park, per se. Camden Yards was obviously the initial park that got everybody going, holy cow, baseball parks can really be unique, and they can be like they used to be and be a baseball park, but have all of today's amenities. And then Jacobs Field was the second of that kind. And, I think the advantage the Indians had was that you were able to have a unique design that nobody else had and hasn't really been replicated since. Now, there are so many great new parks everywhere in baseball, but the bottom line is that, 20 years have come by, and Jacobs Field, which is now Progressive Field, has certainly stood the test of time, and it is still one of the best ballparks in baseball.
I agree, and I can't wait for this next round of renovations to see as they continue to adapt it. I mean, some of the renderings you see, you go, all right, man, I can see how it's going to kind of open up a different look, but yet still the same things that you like there. So now we're bridging into the area, and this is where you began the book, Glory Days in Tribetown with Terry Pluto. Before we talk any more about the Indians, about you and Terry getting together there, I remember when I talked to Joe Tate when he put out his area, and he said, Terry is the only person I would have teamed up with. He's one of my favorite, not just local sports authors, but just sports authors in general. And how did it come together that you two teamed up to do this book? Did he reach out to you? Did you reach out to him, or did somebody else put you two together to create Glory Days in Tribetown?
No, Terry reached out to me, and I've known Terry, for quite some time, and there was a trust factor, much like I felt the same way. I knew there would be no hidden agenda. I knew that it was not going to be a book that you were just trying to dig up dirt on people and try to write a shock value type book. That wasn't the case, and that in mind, and the good news was I didn't have to do any of the writing. He was going to do all the hard work, and he just wanted to, over the course of what ended up being about a year and a half to 2 years, and try to get my thoughts and memories from certain events, players, whatnot, and just kind of have a look back on what was a great era of Indians baseball, and really make it be more of a celebration of that period, rather than what some people might want when they write a book, and that is let's see how scandalous it can be. That was never Terry's intention, and so because of that, you know what, you mentioned celebrated time period. That's clearly, we talk about it all the time. That is in my opinion, unless you go back to, obviously back in the day when they were competing for World Series, we're talking 40s. That was it. To this day, that's the one all the Tribe fans come back to. When they get mad at the team today, the word 90s comes out as the throw. But it was the perfect storm. I know Terry's been on the show a couple of times in the past, but he's mentioned no end, and many of us have the perfect storm of not only the great park, but the Indians, the Browns, the whole situation around that, how that came together, and really how important it was. Also, the loss of the Browns for that. It truly, you call it. Yeah, I've always I take a little exception to people always say, well, the Browns left. Well, guess what, folks? The Browns had nothing to do with the fact the Indians were selling out. They were selling out in 95, and the Browns were still very much in town. And while with the Browns leaving after the 95 season, more focus was on the Indians. Whether the Browns would have been here or not would never have impacted the Indians, because at that point it was all about the Indians, and the games were going to be sold out with or without the Browns. And I think what the Indians did was really fill a void. Much of the fall because the Indians were always playing deep into October. And so I think, if nothing else, the Indians helped fill a void there for the people that had lost the Browns.
I feel exactly what you're saying, and I agree. Not the financial impact, but perhaps that's why the love affair became that much deeper, because at the same time you have one guy who in most people's eyes is betraying the town. You've got this other story, and they just truly enveloped around that team and just took them in, and I agree with you there, because you're right. 95, the Browns were still here. That was the last season before everything went upside down. And I want to talk to you now. We're into that era now, talking about the 94, 95, 96, 97. By the way, why did you choose, I'm just curious, I know you've explained this in other interviews, why did you choose to focus specifically only up until 1997 in this book?
Well, that was really Terry's call. And I think part of it had to do with the fact that things were changing after the 95 season. The Indians obviously went to the World Series in 95 and 97, and while they would continue to dominate and go to the playoffs in 98, 99, and 2001, I think at some point, if you want to get into the details that Terry wanted to get into with some of the players and those special moments, you had to draw a line there. Otherwise, you'd have a book that would be the size of a Bible. And I think the other point of it was that period was really when so much of the core was still together. And little by little, that core was leaving. And so was kind of the general feeling of that very unique group that lost together in the early 90s and then was dominant together in the mid-90s. Carlos Baerga had been traded. Albert Bell walked away on free agent during the free agent period. Kenny Lofton had been traded, and so you had a number of the faces changing, and I think it's twofold. That's part of it. Plus, you didn't go back to the World Series after '97, and I think Terry's feeling was at some point to do the detail that he wanted to do on certain stories and players that you had to kind of put it into a time frame. And let's face it, I think even though the Indians came within 3 outs of winning the World Series in 97, I think if you talk to Indians fans, the 95 season is the one they'll always remember, even though that club lost in 6 games to Atlanta. I think people remember that team and that year probably more so than any season in Indians baseball.
Part 1 of our sit-down with Tom Hamilton, the voice of the Cleveland Indians for the past couple of decades now. I mean, his voice and his name synonymous when you think of Cleveland Indians broadcasting, especially on the radio dial. I always say we have been so fortunate enough to have been blessed with some of the best, and I think that's why I've got such an affinity for calling games myself. I really fell in love with it this year doing it the first time, but Hammy, Joe Tate, and I don't even want to leave anybody out. All the Nev and Shanley, Donovan, all the Browns guys during my era. Just on and on and on. Just the greats. Herb Score. Good stuff, man. And that's what makes me love doing it. Anyways, let's take a break talking about good stuff and get right back into this one because it's great. It is the voice of the Cleveland Indians, Tom Hamilton, part 2 with Tom Hamilton coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
Indian Fever.
The Sports Fix, your choice for intelligent talk.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Intelligent talk.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
Well, there were parts of it that weren't very good, though.
It could have been a lot better.
I didn't really like it.
These guys must be on the wrong station.
It was pretty terrible.
It was bad.
It was awful.
It was terrible.
Get him away!
Hey, boo!
Boo! The Sports Fix.
Sports Fix listeners, do you tweet? So do we. Sports Fix CLE.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact. Time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Have you you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history? In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book. Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
News break.
I'm Christine Lisi. Breaking news, the Heat's Chris Bosh could miss the rest of the season following tests on his lungs, reports the Miami Herald. The fear is that he could have blood clots on his lungs. That would force him to miss the rest of the season, possibly longer, while being treated with blood thinners. Charlotte's Michael Kidd-Gilchrist likely returns from a strained hamstring tomorrow night against Oklahoma City. Baseball Giants manager Bruce Bochy expected to be released from the hospital today after undergoing a heart procedure to insert 2 stents. The team says the medical staff had been monitoring Bochy's heart after he experienced some discomfort during Wednesday's physical exam. NFL running back Adrian Peterson told ESPN Vikings reporter Ben Gosling he's still uneasy about the prospect of returning to Minnesota, said the organization working with the league to put him on the commissioner's exempt list made him question how much support he actually has from the Vikings. Peterson, indicted on a child abuse charge, can apply for reinstatement on April 15th. College basketball, Duke center Jahlil Okafor uncertain tomorrow against Clemson because of an injured left foot.
Sometimes it's not. Valvoline full synthetic high mileage with Max-like technology is different. And you can see why at seeadifference.com. Valvoline, 140 years under the hood.
You're listening to the Sports Fix.
Indian fever. It's catching fire with everyone.
Welcome back here to the Sports Fix live, you guys, across the Sports Fix radio network. We're rolling into hour 2. J-Rocc, Jerry Myers here with you guys, keeping it moving as we're keeping it warm on an absolutely frigid, frozen Friday here. But this weekend, hopefully this weekend edition of the Sports Fix starts your thaw out from the deep freeze, and we're doing our best to add to that, warming things up, talking some baseball. Our guest, the legendary voice of the Cleveland Indians Hall of Famer, a couple of decades worth of memories with this man's voice attached to it, Tom Hamilton, voice of the Indians, here on the Sports Fix. You know, that 95 team that you mentioned there, I mean, that 94 was the happy, you know, it all kind of came together and people were still getting used to having this park and this team and realizing what they could be. 95 was the year when Cleveland said, you know what, it's time to kick some sand in other people's faces instead of 40 years of having it done to us. And that team, that was a special team right there. Yesterday we mentioned it, even though they didn't finish the job to me. I mean, I'm talking baseball history. I think 95 Indians go on the list of the all-time teams. I mean, I don't know where you put them, but that team was a fantastic team, even though some of the personalities led on the national level to it not being perhaps as feel-good of a story as it was for those of us here in Cleveland. Talk to me about the transition from 94 into that very special 95 season.
Well, I think we were the only market that wasn't impacted by the strike. As disappointing and as bitter as fans may have been to not see how far the Indians could take it in 94, Indians fans didn't remain bitter with the game of baseball like so many other people and communities did across America. And so they just couldn't wait for 95 to start whenever it was going to start. And, you know, the ball club and the fans kind of picked right up where they left off in August of 94. And so we were probably almost like Camelot compared to the rest of America when it came to the bitterness, that the strike left with so many fans across America. We didn't have that here in Cleveland because people were just so gaga over their ball club and feeling like for the first time now in 40-some years, they had a chance to get to a World Series and to get to postseason. And so we were very fortunate. Never did impact Cleveland like it did every other franchise. And so, it was almost like we were living in a vacuum compared to everybody else. We were selling out. Other clubs were really struggling at the gate because of the fans' bitterness. And so it just took off. I mean, we late in spring training, Mike Hargrove and John Hart and Danny O'Dowd decided, let's give Jose Mesa a chance to be the closer. He couldn't get it done as a starter, and the Indians didn't really have a bona fide closer late in that shortened spring training, and that was a huge gamble. I mean, people look at it now, and Mesa had one of the great seasons in the history of closers, but nobody could have envisioned that prior to the season, and it was just kind of the way that whole year went. Everything the Indians tried worked, and they won 100 games in a 144-game season. 27 of those 100 wins were last at bat, and I think that all helped perpetuate this great feeling fans had about the ball club. They literally went to the ballpark expecting a win every night and pretty much always saw the Indians win. Some way, somehow, they found a way to win. And, when 27% of your victories are last-at-bat victories, you'll never have a season like that again. And they were the most entertaining offensive ball club, not only in baseball, but one of the most entertaining offensive ball clubs in the history of the game. Plus, that club could really pitch. So there was not a weakness anywhere to be found. And, it almost became the perfect season with the exception of losing the World Series.
When I talk to people about those teams, and especially 95, I say, there's a difference between hoping to win or even, probably thinking you're going to win and literally expecting to win. When you don't win, that's the aberration. And that was how strong that 95 team was. And let me ask you, I touched on it just a second ago, Albert Bell, the mercurial personality of Albert Bell. A lot of people, and I'm curious your thoughts being in the mix, how much of this is hindsight and how much of this was really going on at the time. A lot of people think that the Indians Super Bowl run, let's try that again. As I'm looking at my Twitter feed here, the Indians World Series run with the Braves that year, that the national media kind of soured on what should have been the feel-good story of the Indians because of personalities like Albert Bell. Do you agree with that or no?
Pretty evident. Once you have a team get to the World Series, you're going to be covered like you've never been covered before, and you're going to have people covering your team that have never covered it before. And, obviously Albert Bell went off on Hannah Storm prior to a ball game, and she was a national network personality, and, because you did it in the way he did it against a female, that obviously didn't look good. But, in all honesty, I don't think anybody here in Cleveland gave a hoot. And, they were tired of really being a national punchline for late-night comedians. If anybody needed a cheap laugh, they'd tell a joke about Cleveland. Well, that all changed because of the perception of the city of Cleveland changed due to the ballpark and due to that ball club. The Indians were no longer a laughing stock. They were no longer hapless. They no longer played in a dump off Lake Erie. They played in one of the palaces of baseball. They had the best team in baseball, and the city downtown was reinventing itself, and I think the national perception changed on Cleveland, and I don't think fans here really cared what anybody thought about Albert Bell as long as he was wearing an Indians uniform and hitting 50 home runs. They didn't care. He was their guy, and the national perception of the ball club might have been a little negative, but really at the end of the day, who cares? This was a ball club that entertained the people of Cleveland and Northeast Ohio, and if other people around the country didn't like it, again, who cares?
Entertain is the word. It was the one era, and I know Hemi was on the radio calling it, but it didn't matter because you didn't need to listen to the game, watch the game, or anything to know if the Indians won. All you had to do was listen for the horns out the window anywhere around town every night throughout that season. It was just, it was magical. It was special. I ask guys this a lot, Tom, that you were in there, and you may know how much closer some of these things came to happening or not. Indians on the verge. You know, you've got 2 runs at the World Series there in that period that we're talking about. Was there the one move that they didn't make or anything in your thought that would have put any of those teams over the top that they were close to, or boy, I really wish they would have been able to do this that would have finished off what they were trying to accomplish there?
Well, I mean, you can always look at a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas. You know, they tried desperately to get Curt Schilling from the Philadelphia Phillies, and I thought, and I think the Indians thought it was going to be a done deal. And, you know, I think that obviously would have put the team over the top. And then Curt Schilling said no, that he didn't want the trade. And so, you know, who knows how that would have turned out. But I think it's been proven that Curt Schilling became one of the great postseason pitchers ever in baseball. And you know, I think without question that would have meant a difference for Cleveland and probably would have resulted in a World Series championship. You know, they looked very hard at making trades for Randy Johnson or even signing him as a free agent. And back then in those days, there were questions how long he would last because he had a bad back. And, you know, so I think, you know, you wished you would have been able to make the deal. But, you know, I think sometimes there are second thoughts, you know, when they had a chance at free agency. They signed Jack McDowell, not Kevin Brown. But at the time, you know, Jack McDowell was a bigger winner than was Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown had some baggage that came with him, and he hadn't become the Kevin Brown we would later see, especially up close and personal, even though the Indians beat him twice in the 97 World Series. So you're always going to have that, you know. But I think, you know, what hurt the Indians in those days is, you know, they had a very good pitching staff, but when you got into October baseball, they sometimes were hurt by not having that one dominant guy.
Blackjack McDowell. See, I'm not going to hindsight it like some people will. I remember thinking that was a good deal. I thought, man, this guy, I like what he's done. I think this could fit right in. Turned out that it didn't, and that's why they play the games and they don't just draft him on paper. But I remember, a lot of people will look back at that now and hindsight it, but I remember thinking that was a good plug-in. But you're right, and that's why, you know what, looking to this Indians, you know, the current era, Jonathan Knight and I, one of our sports writers that we have on, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago with Corey Kluber winning the Cy Young and Brantley finishing top 3 in the MVP, and we were going, man, even back in the 90s period, you'd probably have to go all the way back to the 40s or 50s to find an Indians team that had in both of those categories somebody, you know, in the 90s you had a lot of people, Albert Bell, that you could have said were in the MVP conversation, but never a Cy Young candidate at the same time. And that's why I say, man, the window here is pretty good too, because those Indians that we think back and remember so fondly, they didn't have, you know, the combination of both. And perhaps, you know what, but do you agree, can you think of an era other than going back to the, you know, early days, way back to the 40s and 50s of when the Indians had that combination in the same season? Because none of those 90s teams, as you said, had that Cy Young caliber dominant starter.
No, I would agree. I think that's why the future, I think, looks really bright for this ball club for a number of upcoming seasons. You know, Corey Kluber, while winning the Cy Young, is winning it relatively early in his career. This is a guy that really has only 2 full seasons under his belt, so the Indians control him for the next 4 years. And when C.C. Sabathia won the Cy Young in 2007, he was going to be a free agent the next year, and you knew he wasn't going to re-sign. And when Cliff Lee won the Cy Young in 2008, again, free agency was relatively around the corner. He was going to be a free agent in 2 years. And I think those ball clubs also felt not only could they not re-sign those guys, and they were right, But because the ball club needed some help, they were going to try to trade those guys to maybe jumpstart the franchise and get some immediate talent that could pay immediate dividends. We're not in that case now. Not only do you have Corey Kluber for the next 4 years at a minimum, but you also have a ball club that doesn't need that immediate transfusion of talent. This is a talented ball club right now, ready to win. They've had back-to-back winning years, playoffs 2 years ago, came close again last season. And so you don't need to be trading that one key piece that you have because you need help in 3 or 4 other areas.
That was always the problem of the Indians over the dark years, was whenever they needed pitching, they would trade the hitting. And then when they needed hitting, they would trade the pitching. And it's that circle that never stops. And I'm with you. That's why I tell people, I understand why they get frustrated. People, and you've mentioned it, even looking through the eras of this book, players leave and fans get frustrated as their favorites move on. And that's why you find a period like this in Glory Days in Tribe Town that people latch onto and remember so fondly. But the future, I agree with you. Not just saying this as an Indians fan. I believe the future very bright for the next few years for this team because of that. And then that was one of the points there. I wanted to ask you something personally. You've been a long time here doing the broadcasting, and as a fellow broadcaster, I know how much time you're gone. You're in the studio, you're not home, etc., and you're traveling, which makes it even worse. How cool is it to come full circle? Speaking of that term, and be able to do some things that involve your son and be there and see him as he's making his development as a baseball player. How cool were those moments for you?
Well, as a parent, there's nothing that will ever top that. I mean, all you want are your children to be healthy and happy and be able to pursue their dreams. And Nick was able to do that, and to watch him, play in a spring training game and face Major League pitching is, something that I know he'll never forget, and we certainly won't as a family. And you're always grateful for those moments because it doesn't matter if your son is a would-be professional player or is, whatever, a lawyer, a doctor, a teacher. You just want them happy, and you want them to be able to pursue their dreams. And, it's a moment that it'll be hard to top.
And you know what, family, I think people underestimate for you to be able to build a 25-year career of being the standard that people are used to hearing with the franchise, to do the things that you've done, the sacrifice that it takes to allow you to give up your life to be a part of somebody else's life for all those years. I think sometimes people don't realize there's a lot of people behind the scenes, family, that are sacrificing to allow you to be a part of their life as well.
Well, you better have a great wife and someone that can hold it all together when you're on the road, because anything bad that happens usually happens when you're on the road. And I've got an incredible wife, and we've got 4 outstanding children. And, there are all kinds of negatives when it comes to traveling and being away from the family, but the positives outweigh that 100-fold. And like I say, she's an incredible mother and wife, and that's why it works.
Bringing it back around here to the book, Glory Days in Tribe Town by yourself and Terry Pluto. A lot of the full circle is coming with the players of that era here, too, as we're seeing them begin to get put into the Indians Hall of Fame. Jim Thome and the statue. What were your thoughts, by the way, as an aside, on that? There was a lot of people, and I think the Indians have addressed some of people's concerns by adding the Larry Doby statue as well. But the Jim Thome statue, some people were very happy to see that. A different portion of the fan base felt, well, he left, he took the money, came back. What are your thoughts on the Indians doing that? And do you feel that most of the fan base has come around on Jim Thome, or is there still a bit of a different set of opinions?
Well, I'm sure there's always going to be some negativity towards Jim because he elected to sign elsewhere, but that was his right. And, the people that say that, I never worry too much about people that are negative about somebody else's decisions. First and foremost, I don't judge other people on what their life decisions are, and they have no right to judge anybody else. I think we all have enough to handle when it comes to our own lives, and I think people ought to be concerned about that. And and not be judging other people. You know, Jim gave this organization everything he had. He played 11, 12 years for the Indians. He's the all-time home run leader in Indians history. You know, he's a guy that legitimately got 600 career home runs. He didn't have any chemical help. And this guy will go into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame as a Cleveland Indian, and he's one of the finest people I've ever met in any walk of life. And if that isn't good enough for some fans, then so be it. Live in misery, and, you know, no one's going to miss you. So I have no qualms in saying that, because I know what kind of a human being he is, and I think it's outstanding that there's going to be, you know, a statue commemorating his time and that era here in Cleveland. I mean, if we're going to turn our back on everybody that left this ball club from that era, well, then we've got nobody to honor. And the game has changed. Free agency has changed the game. People can say what they want, but players in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, they would have left if they'd have been offered better opportunities elsewhere and more money, just like anybody else would in their walk of life. If somebody offers you a raise and you're able to move on, you're going to do it because it helps your family. And so I think it's important to commemorate the great players in Indians history, and I think these statues are just the beginning, and I think you'll see more of them. You mentioned Larry Doby, and there will be others that will be honored, and I think that's great. That makes your ballpark almost a part museum, and that's what makes baseball so special, that generations are able to look at those statues and read the plaques and relay stories to the next generation. And that's what connects baseball with people better than any other sport. And I've seen these statues at various other ballparks around baseball, and I think it's tremendous. And I'm so glad that the Indians are going to be doing more of these. And again, embrace history. And, you know, this wasn't Albert Bell and the way he left town. This was a guy that epitomized everything that was good about his time in Cleveland.
Tom, you hit it on the head with what I felt about the Thome. My only issue with, and it wouldn't have mattered if it was Jim Thome, Omar, whoever the next statue was, I was just in that group that felt they needed to, you know, Larry Doby needed to be the next one before we get into the modern players. The Indians, I would always talk to them about that. They'd say, well, you got the street name. And yeah, but it's not the same as the statue to me. And they've addressed that now. And so now I'm all for it. That was my one thing, was I thought, man, that's such, you know, he's such a significant part of not just Indians history, but baseball history that people, you know, may look past. I thought he needed to be honored. Now that they've added that, I'm on board. Let's whoever's next, that's cool. But that was my only issue. It didn't have anything to do with Jim Thome when he hit free agency or that. It was that I just thought that Larry Doby needed to be next. So like you just said, I was so happy that they addressed that, boom, like that, and got that out. Because that really, to me, was what the one issue that I had with that. And I love that they have the heritage area and they're going to expand on that. And like you said, it's right there. I would take my kids down to the area of the park and they go, man, I didn't even know this was here. Yeah, that's right. That was the only thing I thought was, man, they should attract more attention to this, because there's a lot of people that go, oh yeah, but it's almost the forgotten part there. And I think they're going to add more focus on that here and really bring in the heritage of this club as well into being an exhibit. I think that's awesome, especially when you have the heritage that the Cleveland Indians have.
Yep, I agree.
Tom Hamilton, Glory Days in Tribe Town. You and Terry Pluto put together one heck of a book right here, and hopefully, who knows, 25 years from now, maybe people are writing a book about the current era of the Cleveland Indians. But even then, I don't know if anybody would ever fall in love with it as much as this. I think 25 years from now, Tom, people are still looking back at those 90s Indians as the tip of the iceberg, no matter what future teams do. That one is just special, and it has a place in the hearts of fans in this whole city.
I agree. It'll always be a great period, and like you said, I'm hopeful that we have another period like that. It would be great for the city and for Indians fans, but you know, it doesn't happen very often, and then that's why you relish those memories.
Tom, before I let you go, I had a couple of questions here from some listeners here. Bruce wanted to know, is there one call? I mean, obviously, you're known for your signature calls. Is there one most memorable in your mind that is just bookmarked as this was my favorite moment? Not necessarily even your favorite call, but calling maybe your favorite signature moment of that era?
Yeah, there are so many. I think one is obviously Game 6 of the ALCS in '95 when, you're facing Seattle in that Wild Kingdom, and Randy Johnson is the most feared pitcher in the game, and if you lose that game, you've got to play a Game 7, and you never know what's going to happen, especially when you're playing it on the road. But Kenny Lofton scoring from second base on a passed ball, I mean, you just never see that in the regular season, much less with the American League pennant hanging in the balance, and that'll be always probably at the top of my list from a memory of that period, because when he scored, you knew from that point on that this ball club was going to go to the World Series, and that impossible dream was about to become a reality. That to me stands right at the top of any of them.
You're known for all of these signature calls. I mean, I could go through them all, whether you started at the corner of Carnegie and Ontario and you end it with a ball game. I asked Joe Tate this, and he had an answer. I think yours will probably be pretty similar. Any of those, do they all come out of the ether? Have you ever planned any of those, or are they simply organic and you stick with the ones that work?
Yeah, I think in this business, if you're not spontaneous and if you're trying to script what you're going to say, chances are it'll blow up in your face and it'll sound very disingenuous. So, I think spontaneity is the key to doing play-by-play, and that's how I approach it. I've never really written anything out or pre-planned the ending of a game, because I'll tell you what, more than half the time you do that, and you're so consumed on what you want to say that you actually miss the moment. So I'm a big believer in being spontaneous.
All the great ones have said that. Final question. I'm going to put you jokingly on the spot because I promised Indians Twitter fans here that I would. They want to know, Tom Hamilton, when are you going to get your own Twitter account? You need one. They want you to have one. Are you going to get on Twitter?
That will never happen. And I have no problem with people that are on Twitter or want to tweet or whatever it is, but I will never be a part of it. I think too many people get themselves in trouble based on what they say on Twitter and say stuff, whether it's Twitter, whether it's email, whether it's text messaging. I've always told my kids, pick up the phone and talk to somebody. Say something face-to-face, because too many times I think things can get misconstrued otherwise, but, that's just me.
Too funny. So there you have it, Indians Twitter. Unfortunately, Hammy will entertain you on the radio, but he will not be joining you in your social media conversations. But that's okay. Rosie's on Twitter, so anybody, they can always pass the message along to you there. Hammy, thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward, of course, to your call of another Indian season and many Indian seasons to come.
Well, thank you, Jerry. I really appreciate you having me on, and to you and all of your fans, thank you.
Thank you so much. Honored to have you here, a part of the show. Is it opening day already? Because I can hear Hammy calling it, and away we go from the corner of Carnegie and Ontario with some Indians baseball. Tom Hamilton, voice of the Indians, gracious enough to join us here on the Sports Fix. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed doing it. I say that all the time, but it's not cliche. It is most definitely true. Looking forward to catching up with Jim Rosenhaus, Hammy's partner in the radio booth, as spring training rolls on and we get closer to starting this season. Do a season preview with Rosie. We usually do that right around this time of year here on the Sports Fix. Thanks again to Tom Hamilton. Glory Days in Tribe Town, by the way, is the book, and it's double important here this season as the Indians are going to celebrate the anniversary of the 95 Indians. GV Artworks doing a special 95 Indians themed t-shirt. They've got a special 95 Indians night. A lot of that being focused on here. So boom, that book ties right into it. It's a great book. Pick up a copy if you can. Glory Days in Tribetown. We're going to take a break, final break of the show. When we come back, Cavs get back into action. 2 big games this weekend. Basketball's back. I love it. Keeps the clock moving and the boredom away. We'll set the stage for that. Monsters this weekend, making a wish with a couple of games, Vikings and more. Don't go anywhere. Final segment of The Fix coming up next.
Indian Fever.
And now, a very special announcement from the Sports Fix.
Black bears weigh between 200 and 500 pounds. Brown bears weigh between 300 and over 1,000 pounds. Black bears run away from you. Brown bears run at you. When attacked by a bear, simply lie still on the ground and cover your face and head with your hands. When the bear is finished batting you around and mauling you, contact the U.S. Forest Service.
And that was a message from the Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
It's the Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize.
I mean, a really real prize.
Yeah.
Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD, the excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials. Fight fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Hi, this is Dean Chenoweth, head coach of Cleveland's Lake Erie Monsters, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live, final segment of the show here. Coming across the Sports Fix Radio Network, J-Rocc with you. Been with you here throughout this frozen, absolutely record-setting cold day. That's okay. We kept it warm, baby. Jonathan Knight, the sports writer extraordinaire, kicked things off. And Tom Hamilton, voice of the Indians for nearly the last hour. That was some good stuff there, man. I was just sitting back listening, and I'm with it, man. Hopefully you guys are too. Thank you guys for being with us here today. Speaking of Jonathan Knight here as we get back into the show. Well, you know what? Before I even go off and start talking about stuff, you guys, hey, final segment means final chance for you to get in touch with us live. 216-539-7535. Phones are open, of course, 24/7. 216-539-7535 if you want to call during the hours that we're not on the air, or use your social media, Facebook and Twitter. Let me know what you thought of today's show, this week's shows. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. I'll tell you what, checked the email in the last break there, and there's some competition in the trivia contest this year. Charles Morgan ran away with that thing last year. There is some competition this year, and I'm with it. A couple of people already got today's question. Jonathan Knight, of course, brought today's question to us. I'm with it because a couple of people got yesterday's question correct. A couple of people got it wrong, too. But for those of you guys that didn't listen, shame on you. You should have listened earlier in the show to Jonathan Knight. Rewind and listen. I shouldn't even give you the question again. I should make you go back and listen. But anyways, if you missed it or if you're tuning in late, hey, question number 4 in the Tribe Trivia Challenge, which, by the way, the Tribe Trivia Challenge, it's 10 days, 10 questions leading up to the first spring training game for the Indians. Most correct answers is going to win a 1972 Gaylord Perry Cleveland Indians jersey. Today, Jonathan Knight brought question number 4. It had to do with Major League, the movie. Of course, big anniversary of the movie coming up. Lots of stuff. I got a cool story off of that to tell you guys here in a minute. But Jonathan Knight's question was, in the original, the number 1 Major League movie, in the original, what was the name of the Cleveland Indians starting pitcher on opening day in the movie Major League? If you get it right, and by the way, as a hint, it also has a real-life tie-in to a former Cleveland Indians player in Indians history. So a little bit of a clue there for you. All you have to do, if you know the answer, is email thesportsfix@AOL.com. Thesportsfix, all one word, at AOL.com. Say, hey, I've got the answer for question number 4, and tell me who was the Indians' opening day pitcher, the starting pitcher for Major League, the movie. And there you go. You'll be entered as well. Listen back the last 3 days and answer questions 1, 2, and 3. You can answer them at any time up until the end of the contest. So no matter when you hear the first question, you can go back and listen to them all. Each day, one question, all the way up until Monday, March 2nd. March 3rd, we're going to have the winner. So go back and listen. There were some good ones this week from Dan Wismar, from Mike Brandenberry. Next week, round 2 from those guys. I can't wait to see what Mike Brandenberry comes up with next week. He's got a whole staff of guys that come up with these things. But make sure you get in on the Sports Fix 2015 Tribe Trivia Challenge this weekend. I can't wait to see the answers flying in. Speaking of winners, I got right into the show when we launched. Camille Felder. Congratulations to Camille. She was the winner yesterday of Vince McKee's book, LeBron James, Redemption of the King. Camille was one of the people that emailed us. We Let's try that again. We drew the winner at random from the first 23 emails that we got, courtesy of, number 23, LeBron James. And that book brought to you by Vince McKee, Clarity Press, and the Sports Fix. Camille Felder, the winner of the book. We're going to hook her up and get that out to her as well. So make sure you keep listening, because I'm going to have another copy of that book in a few weeks as we get closer. But Camille is going to get her hands on that book before you can even buy it at the bookstore. And hey, speaking of books, by the way, Cleveland's Finest, which features yours truly, along with a whole lot of other people, just did a relaunch this week, and a fantastic new cover design to it. Just an awesome cover. The new cover, it's great, and check it out if you haven't. I highly recommend Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee, and I'm not just saying that because I'm in it. It's a great book, but they did a beautiful job with the new cover on that as well. Vince McKee stuff just flying off the shelves there. But congratulations again to Camille Felder. You won LeBron James, Redemption of the King by Vince McKee. Thank you for listening, and good luck or congratulations for winning, and good luck. Perhaps you enter the Indians contest here. We'll see. I can't wait, seriously, to see what kind of questions these cats come up with next week. Speaking of can't wait, don't have to wait anymore for the Cavs to get back in action after the little bit of extended break for the All-Star extravaganzas and all that. teams getting back into action now. Cavs 2 games this weekend, as JK and I were talking about earlier, to kind of piggyback around. You got the Wizards tonight, and that's going to be a good one, man. These two teams neck and neck in the middle of that very tight area of the Eastern Conference standings. First chance for each team to get out there and throw a blow at the other one. Bradley Beal won't be playing here tonight. Cavaliers, I believe, should be at full strength here when they meet Washington. So we'll see. Cavs going for their 15th victory in their last 17 games here tonight. Lost that final game before the break, but they're a half a game behind Washington. 4th and 5th they sit in the Eastern Conference standings. It's just a good test to start things off here, and I'll be very interested to see how the Cavaliers come out and play here tonight. Should be a full slate. As I said, nobody injured. I have no idea if Ramon Sessions, I mentioned earlier, I think that was a great pickup for the Wizards to back up John Wall and be that second point guard. He's very offensive-minded, but he can play some defense, too. I liked Ramon Sessions when he was here in Cleveland. He definitely didn't do anything wrong by me. Interesting, too, it was actually 2 former Cavaliers traded for each other, because it was Andre Miller who got shipped out to the Kings in exchange for Sessions. But I don't know if Sessions is going to play, but with Beal being out, I'll tell you, they could definitely use Sessions if he's able to. So I don't know. We'll see about that tonight. Then on Sunday, Cavaliers with one of those games JK and I were saying they need to take care of business, put the foot down, beat the Knicks on Sunday. That's a 1 p.m. tip-off as they go to New York. Then they've got the final game of this 3-game road trip. Well, it's technically a 4-game road trip because they had one before the break, but they've got Detroit coming up on Tuesday. So on Monday, we'll look back. We'll see how they did against the Wizards and the Knicks on these 2 road games this weekend. Should be some good basketball played by the Cavs. They should be fresh. Everybody's healthy, feeling good. Let's see how they get started down the second half stretch run of the season. And speaking of basketball, Vikings as well get back in it. Their game was wiped out by the weather the other day. They're going to Green Bay, 7 p.m. tonight. ESPN 2, it's on the Deuce tonight. There'll be televised national TV game for the Vikings and the Phoenix. This is a big one. 21-6 Green Bay overall. Vikings 16-11, but both teams, the key stat, are neck and neck in the Horizon League. Vikings are in second place, 10-3, tied for second place with the Green Bay Phoenix, 1 game behind Valpo, who's 11-2. So this is big, and don't forget, the Vikes have Valpo coming up last game of the season. So a week off for the Vikings. Will they be rusty or not? I don't know. Green Bay has not lost at home yet this season. They're 12-0, looking to make it a baker's dozen. Vikings really need to snap that here. Do them no good here to fall behind when you start looking at seeding for the tournament and the way these last few games could fall down. Green Bay predominant in this series overall, but the last time these two teams met, Vikings got the victory earlier this season. It was just, 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago? 2.5 weeks ago. 76-62 when those two teams met at the Wolstein Center. It had broke a 5-game winning streak for Green Bay. Vikings need to go out and make this 2 in a row here. They're only 9-25 all time in Green Bay. Last time the Vikings went to Green Bay and beat the Phoenix, December 2nd, 2010, they defeated Green Bay 83-75. That's a bit of a way there, and Coach Waters would love to snap that here. Really need to. You've got to take care of all the business you can. Vikings, Green Bay should be a good one here tonight. We'll talk about that as well coming up here as teams continue jockeying for postseason positioning, not just the big tournament, but the conference tournaments as well. Monsters, a big weekend for them. Back-to-back games coming up. We talked to Doug Plagans yesterday. Lake Erie Monsters, Rockford after that road trip. Monsters back at home. Tonight, puck drops at 7:30. Monsters coming off of a victory against the second-best team in the conference, Milwaukee, the other day. They've rotated wins and losses their last 4 games. They'd like to just make it 2 victories here. 11th place in the conference, but 5 points back of the playoffs here. Last 2 playoff spots, Monsters only 5 points back. Rockford, they're coming in pretty warm here. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. They're in 4th place in the Western Conference. This is one of those teams ahead of the Monsters that they need to start plowing ahead some victories as they go tomorrow, 7 p.m. Same teams do it again, back-to-back nights. It's Make-A-Wish night. Should be a really cool atmosphere. Some special Make-A-Wish jerseys, some Make-A-Wish wishes being granted by the Monsters. Should be a great, great atmosphere and a big crowd tomorrow at the Q. Bruce, no, I'm not doing a game tonight. Bruce in the chat room asked, my game got wiped out by the weather. I was supposed to do Lakeside and Willoughby South tonight. Game got wiped out due to the weather. They thought maybe there'd be a rescheduling tomorrow. The game's going to be rescheduled, but the broadcast will not because the station already has other commitments. So I am not going to be on the radio. I will, however, be wrestling tomorrow. I've got a pro wrestling show here in Cleveland, actually, through the city of Cleveland. It's at the Estabrook Recreation Center here on the west side of Cleveland with a very odd 2:30 in the afternoon bell time. Doors open at 2, bell time 2:30. If you guys want to come and check me out there, I'll be doing the wrestling thing this weekend. Something I wanted to mention before I get to wrapping up the show here. I was talking about Major League with Jonathan Knight and his question for the trivia contest, and everybody's jumping on that. And I thought this was a really cool thing. Milwaukee just announced this week that they're making a Harry Doyle bobblehead, but it's not just a regular bobblehead. It's a microchip bobblehead with talking. It's got his phrases from the movie, and I don't know what the specific ones are, but it's got 3 of his. I'm assuming Just a Bit Outside is one of them, and it's got 3 of his key phrases from Major League. It's the Harry Doyle bobblehead. This one was a special bobblehead. You actually had to buy special tickets. They put 4,000 premium tickets on sale to get the bobblehead because it's a premium bobblehead. And they went so fast that Milwaukee put another 4,000 on sale this week. And so I actually stumbled across an article about bobbleheads and, of course, the explosion. I couldn't even believe it. The first bobblehead 16 years ago in Major League Baseball, Willie Mays for the San Francisco Giants in 1999. But they've exploded. Bobbleheads are the biggest promotional item in sports. Major League Baseball this year, 121 different bobbleheads will be given out throughout baseball teams. Of course, the Indians have got Carlos Santana. They've got Corey Kluber and Dr. Smooth. And then Terry Francona's scooter is going to get a bobblehead. But I saw some interesting ones. That Harry Doyle one is really cool. They're doing a Star Wars night. Milwaukee leads the league. They said it's a guaranteed sellout, according to their metrics, when they do a bobblehead night. So they're doing 12 bobblehead nights, 10 standard and 2 premium bobbleheads where you have to buy the extra special ticket for the bobblehead. The other one is a glowing green lightsaber on one of their players because it's Star Wars night. They said the 6,000 tickets they put up for that one, 30 hours they were sold out there. One that I thought was really cool, and I'd love to see the Indians copy it. You know, I was talking to Tom Hamilton there, as you heard just a little bit ago, about how to honor that whole 95 team. This is kind of a cool idea. The Reds are doing like a Nasty Boys bobblehead of that the group of relievers. Remember, it was Norm Charlton, Rob Dibble, and Randy Myers. They got the 3 together as the Nasty Boys. I thought that might be a kind of cool way that you could put a couple of the Indians together as a team montage bobblehead. All kinds of different ones, you know. There's a Talking Harry Carey for the Cubs and the Cardinals game, which is pretty cool. A Yadier Molina one for the Cardinals, where he's holding 7 gold gloves and 3 platinums for the different awards that he's won. All kinds of different things, and some interesting different bobbleheads. But it's the new big thing. That's the hot ticket in sports, and especially Major League Baseball. They say they sell, what is it, on average, bobbleheads in Major League Baseball put 7,000 more fans in the seats when they run them. You saw the Indians. They ran a whole slate of them this past season, and more of them coming up this year. All kinds of other ones. In my research of the bobbleheads, I saw all kinds of different, they get those yard gnomes now. Team yard gnomes is a big thing. 12 different teams are giving out yard gnomes and replica championship rings as well. Something that 9 different teams are giving out this season. That would be something I'd love to see the Indians be able to do. And of course, you've got all the traditional stuff as well. But I thought that was interesting. I'd love to get my hands on one of those Harry Doyle ones. That would be pretty cool. That's a good one there for the Brewers. And the Indians need to jump in on some of that as well. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up and call it the week. You guys make sure, spread the word, spread the love, share the show if you guys like what you heard today and this week. Let people know about the contest so they can get in. The competition is getting good. I like it. Can't wait to see how many people are up for the end of this thing when we give it away. It's the Tribe Trivia Challenge, of course. 4 questions down, 6 more to go. Monday, the next question comes your way. Me and Dan Wismar are going to have to go deep into the cauldron and cook up something good for you guys on Monday. Listen back to the last few days if you missed the questions. Today's question with Jonathan Knight was from the movie Major League. Go back and listen. I just said it a few minutes ago, and you can just click back and listen to it again. Email your answers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. Monday, let's see if we can find John McMullen and talk some NFL on the back end of the Combine. Got Combine stuff going on this weekend. You got actually guys out there doing things. We'll talk about that. Jameis Winston says his shoulder's banged up. So we'll look for John McMullen, and Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan joins us. Question 5 in the Tribe Trivia Challenge. We'll talk about the Cavs weekend, Monsters, Vikings, and so much more. Let's do it. Monday, same bad time, same bad channel, live at noon right here across the Sports Fix Radio Network. You know how we do it, baby. Have fun this weekend, whatever you're doing, you guys. We love you, Cleveland, and we will see you Monday. We love everybody, not just Cleveland. We love all you guys, even you in Timbuktu. We'll see all of you right here, live on Monday, here on the Sports Fix.
Survivors of my street, we hustle.